Don't get me wrong. Andrew Huberman is smart, tall, handsome, educated, dreamy, and probably knows what he's talking about.
And no, we are not going to have a blinking contest because I would win and you would lose, and that wouldn't be fun for you.
This video is not an attack on Andrew Huberman. However, Andrew Huberman is also an influential content creator and much more an embodiment of a trend which I've come to call health hustling. I really doubt it's going to stick. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but these days the proliferation of longevity and health-oriented YouTube channels and content creators is going through the roof.
No caffeine for the first 90 minutes, salt in water, so I use Element. Having a morning coffee is literally pointless. It
destroys you in the afternoon.
Correct.
So that's part of the reason I quit drinking alcohol. I had, 1 glass of wine or 2 glasses or 3 glasses of wine the day before. When I woke up the next day, my heart rate variability was like flashing red.
So I don't eat anything until about 11 a.m. or 12 noon. After I finish, I do some form of physical exercise for about an hour. Very last, but certainly not least, deliberate cold exposure. And that's what I do each morning.
Now, at this point, you might be asking yourself, what the hell is wrong with that? You know, what kind of a disingenuous, sadomasochistic muppet doesn't want to live a long and healthy life? And you're right, I do. There's absolutely nothing wrong with striving to be healthy. No, the problem lies, or problems lie deeper. So let's take a look at them. First and foremost, Andrew Huberman and gang are obviously content creators. That means that they have to keep coming up with new content so that you keep coming back. This, of course, is true when we talk about every and any content creator out there, whether their thing is building swimming pools with their bare hands, coming up with dystopian challenges, or criticizing Andrew Huberman's content. But it also means that the story about your health can never really be closed, at least not in a sensible manner. Can you imagine Huberman just showing up to his trusty desk one day, turning to the camera and saying, guys, after reading tens of thousands of studies, I finally got it. I have a sensible approach to health. It's a simple guideline, and here it is. Eat broccoli, sleep on your right side, and don't smell your farts. That's it. That's all you have to do. Follow this simple principle for the rest of your life, and you'll be just fine. Case closed. Huberman out.
Andrew Huberman is saying, please cut that. I didn't say it.
Now, that's never going to happen. And that's why he has to divide the topics into smaller and smaller anatomy sections. And that's why the health guidelines that are discussed become ever so niche that they're sometimes almost comical. We go from overall well-being to fasting to eyesight to testosterone to best supplement for your left toe. Now, to be fair to Huberman and gang, health and longevity are incredibly complex topics, and new studies are coming out constantly. But it's also important to remember that studies are not facts set in stone. Studies may show promising leads, but they need to be expanded, replicated, thoroughly investigated, and reviewed before we should base potentially life-changing decisions on them. Sometimes studies that seem airtight are thoroughly debunked later on. But the bigger issue here is this. Who the hell has the time or the money to stay on top of every single health study or fad and to do so in a consistent manner? Actually, as we'll see later, there are some people that manage to do that. But let's leave that aside for now. We've probably all had our moment when we forgot to take our 5th omega-3 pill that day, so we were moping around for a while before we eventually abandoned the whole thing, feeling even worse than when we started. Even with Huberman doing his best to distill new findings into a digestible format, there's no way you'll have the time or the necessary means to first follow up and second to put them into practice. There's just too much of everything. This is an unrealistic standard that's being set, and we all know it. Which brings me to problem number 2, guilt. There are a few things as intimately linked to life as health. Many times we equate the two. So when you're not going above and beyond to try to do everything to stay healthy, you probably feel a little bit uneasy, a little bit guilty. At least I do. And I really doubt that I'm the only one. Try to follow every piece of Huberman's advice as religiously as you can. Stuff will inevitably still fall through the cracks. And you'll probably feel a twang of uneasiness when they do. Did I do everything I could for my left kidney today? Did I stare into the sun in the morning for exactly 270 seconds? Did I eat to feed my amygdala with that one supplement that sounds like the name of Elon Musk's latest child. This sort of self-induced health neuroticism can easily poison the well of your otherwise perfectly happy life. But that's not all there is to it. Sitting at the bottom of the wider dynamics of how we take care of ourselves is the assumption that when things go wrong, it's usually our fault. The system we live in is based on the erroneous and extremely silly belief that we are total masters of our own destinies, that we make our own luck. But life, as we know, just doesn't operate like that. You might be the fittest person on the planet, but end up developing a rare neurological disease. A completely random mutation may cause cancer. A stupidly placed rock can produce a fateful car crash. Sometimes people get sick or hurt without an apparent cause whatsoever. Like it or not, our universe is the universe of randomness, of chaos, and of chance.
If the asteroid had been delayed somehow by some unseen force by like 3 seconds, it would have missed Earth. And dinosaurs wouldn't have probably died out, mammals probably wouldn't have risen in the same way, and humans wouldn't exist. So all of our existence, all human history, is derived from this little accident in the cosmos.
Now, that's hardly Huberman's fault, but it does run counter to the overall narrative he likes to participate in, only presenting the Dave Gogginses of the world.
The one mentality that you must have in life is that regardless of what's in front of you, you still must grind.
While omitting the stories of all the unfortunate souls who might have done everything right, but simply get the short end of the stick, which happens. In this case, was time spent deluding ourselves that we're invincible because we followed every new health fad really better than taking some time to acknowledge the ultimate unpredictability of life and to contemplate our morality a little bit? Which brings me to the final problem. Well, it's actually a question. And the question is this: what does it mean to lead a good life? I know, it's a little bit pretentious, but bear with me. I will tie it all in, I promise. Now, remember a minute ago when I said that there are some people who actually go all in when it comes to health and longevity science? Enter Brian Johnson, a 46-year-old billionaire, surprise, who decided to live forever. Brian, who somehow looks like an extra that was cut from the Twilight series, is spending $2 million a year to try and stop aging. But the frightening thing is what this health fad martyr chooses to endure every day to do so. Because every single day, Brian eats the same meal at the exact same times. Every single day, he dutifully collects his stool samples. Must be fun. And every single day, he takes precisely 111 pills. He even has a tiny jetpack attached to his penis to monitor his nighttime erections, which must be a bit of an ordeal because, well, he doesn't have time to date, obviously.
I don't quite see how you would fit a woman into this life.
That's a legitimate question, and I'm still trying to sort that out. When I do engage, I do clearly communicate, here's the system, here's the program, here's what I'm trying to do, here's where the openings are. And, it's a pretty narrow set of potential mates because what I do is pretty rigorous.
In other words, Brian's everyday existence is planned down to the last second because every little misstep costs him precious minutes of his life. That's how he thinks. So in the service of ultimate control, Brian has eliminated every ounce of doubt, spontaneity, and chance out of his life. Every day is an exact replica of the previous day and the day before that. Brian is basically living in a self-induced Groundhog Day.
How are you doing this?
I told you, I wake up every day right here, right in Punxsutawney, and it's always February 2nd. And there's nothing I can do about it.
If, of course, you can even call that living. Although not that extreme, Huberman himself is often veering into this territory. Not because he's gone mad, but because that's the logical conclusion of his pursuits. But because he never asks himself what all these pursuits are standing on. This drill of eternal, monotonous, oppressive health regimens begins to resemble a living nightmare from which all joy has to be banished. Every time you dance throughout the night instead of sleeping, every time you decide to have that one amazing cigarette at the party, every time you order another glass of wine because the evening discussion demands it, you're costing yourself some valuable HP points. You're not gaining a meaningful moment, you're cutting your future short. Even though, as you probably agree, these are going to be the moments you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Staying at home and examining your stool samples is simply not going to create any new memories for you. Because that's what I think a life worth living really means. As philosopher Alan Watts once put it, it's better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating for a life of some hedonistic, ill-conceived dissolution. I'm not suggesting that you live like a 19th century painter in Paris, drinking yourself to death at the early age of 26 or something. All I'm suggesting is that you stop mindlessly consuming all of this health content for a moment and think about what kind of life is worth living to you. If you want to live a life of endless repetition where you can never have dessert anymore, and you thought about it, then that's okay. Whatever you do, don't follow the voice of an internal dictator who sprung out of a trend you don't actually even believe in. That's it. All right, tovaryshi and tovarishice, thank you for listening. Until next time.